Your body expects its food to be cooked. That is strange because almost every other animal eats its food exactly as it finds it. Somewhere in human history, fire began doing part of your digestion outside your body. And eventually, your body became dependent on the arrangement. Think about that for a moment. Not as a fact, but as a confession, your own biology has been quietly making your entire life. Every time you smell something warm and lean toward it without meaning to. Every time your mouth softens before the first bite. Every time you open a fridge full of raw ingredients and feel, somehow, that there is nothing to eat. That is not preference, that is inheritance. No lion waits for its meat to soften over a flame. No ape stands beside a fire, turning a root in the ashes, timing it, deciding when it is ready. Only us. Only this strange, upright creature that walked out of Africa and decided, somewhere along the way, that raw was not enough. So here's the question no one asks at dinner. Why does your body expect food that has already been changed? Why does the smell of something cooking feel, on some quiet level, like safety? And how did a wild animal become so entangled with a flame that, without it, we can barely feed ourselves anymore? Imagine standing in a kitchen when the power dies. The fridge hums into silence. The stove goes cold. You open the cabinets and find rice, flour, dried beans, raw meat wrapped in plastic. Everything you need to survive. And yet, standing there in the dark, holding all this food in your hands, something in you insists that there is nothing to eat. That feeling is older than you think. Because a human body, stripped of its kitchen, is a strange animal. Our teeth are small, our jaws are weak, our stomachs are modest. Compared to a gorilla chewing raw leaves 11 hours a day, we are almost embarrassingly under-equipped for the wild world our ancestors came from. A gorilla's life is essentially a slow, patient act of chewing. Ours is not. Somewhere in our deep past, something began doing part of the work of digestion for us. Something outside our bodies. Something we could tend and lose and rebuild. And it changed everything. Picture the landscape those early humans lived in. Not the poetic version, the real one. A place where food was everywhere and almost nothing was easy. Roots buried beneath compacted ground, guarded by fiber so tough it wore teeth down to stumps by middle age. Bones packed with marrow no jaw could crack. Bitter tubers that could feed a family, if you knew the secret. Meat that turned to leather in the sun. Fruit that was ripe for a week, then gone. You could stand in the middle of abundance and still starve, because the calories were locked behind walls your body could not break. Hunger, in that world, was not always the absence of food. It was the absence of a way in. That was the puzzle. And for a very long time, the answer was stone. Long before the first flame, our ancestors were already cheating. They struck flakes off river cobbles and used them to slice what teeth could not tear. They pounded roots between rocks until the fibers gave up. Researchers who tried to measure this discovered something startling. A diet with some meat, sliced and pounded, could save an early human nearly 2 million chews a year. 2 million. Every year of their life. Think of what that meant. Time that would have been spent grinding turned into time for walking, watching, learning, holding a child, telling a story. The first artificial tooth was not a tooth at all. It was a stone held in the hand. And then, somewhere, sometime, in a way no archaeologist will ever fully see, one of those hands reached toward a fire. We do not know how it started. That is the honest answer. And it is more interesting than any tidy invention story. There was no genius sitting by a river inventing cooking. There was probably a wildfire, sweeping across grassland, and after the smoke cleared, someone walked through the ash and found animals already dead, roots already softened, seeds already opened. They ate, and their body remembered. Maybe it happened 1,000 times before anyone thought to repeat it on purpose. Maybe a root fell into hot coals by accident. Maybe someone left meat too close to a warming fire and returned to find it changed. What matters is not the first bite. What matters is the day someone remembered the taste of it and did it again, and then taught a child to do the same. Because a single accident dies with the moment. A remembered accident becomes a tradition. The evidence is scattered across the planet like whispers. Deep inside a cave in South Africa called Wonderwork, scientists found burned bone and ashed plants pressed into sediment nearly 1 million years old, far too deep inside for a passing grass fire to reach. Fire had lived there, kept alive by hands we will never see. In Israel, at a place called Gesher Benot Yaakov, archaeologists sifted through the earth and pulled out something almost impossibly small. Fish teeth. Tens of thousands of them. Their crystal structure whispered that they had been heated, gently, not burned, around 780,000 years ago. Someone had cooked a fish. Not seared it, not burned it. Cooked it, with the kind of patience that suggests they had done it before. And in a corner of England called Barnham, Hundreds of thousands of years later, our ancestors carried lumps of iron pyrite from somewhere far away, struck them against flint, and made sparks appear where none had existed before. They were not just keeping fire anymore, they were pulling it out of nothing. That is a different kind of mind. A mind that no longer waits for the sky to give it a flame. Now here is the story turns inward. Because when heat meets food, something happens that no one on that ancient hearth could have understood, and yet everyone benefited from. Starch, locked tight inside the cells of a root, unravels. Protein, coiled and defensive, loosens and opens. Connective tissue in tough meat begins to melt. Bitter compounds break down, parasites die, and the body on the receiving end suddenly gets more energy from the same food for less work in less time. The world had not become richer, only more reachable. Cooking did not add calories to food, it made the calories reachable. It moved a piece of digestion outside the body, into the fire, into the stone, into the knowledge of the person tending it. The kitchen, in a very real sense, became an organ we wear outside our skin. An organ that can be shared, taught, stolen, forgotten, and rebuilt. And once that happened, we could never really go back. Because a body that expects softened food develops smaller teeth. A mouth that no longer needs to grind for hours frees up time. A child who can eat mashed roots survives longer. An elder with worn teeth remains part of the group, and with them, all the knowledge they carry. The fire was not just feeding stomachs, it was feeding generations. It was keeping alive the very people who remembered how to keep the fire alive. And around that fire, something else began to grow. Something we still live inside today. Because a cooked meal is slow. It waits. And while it waits, people wait with it. Someone has to gather fuel. Someone has to guard the food from theft. Someone has to time the heat. Someone has to decide who eats first, who eats most, who eats at all. The hearth turned calories into a question of fairness, of belonging, of trust. A raw fruit can be eaten in secret. A cooked meal cannot. Its smell travels. Its light gathers people. It forces a decision about who is inside the circle and who is not. This is why, thousands of years later, you still feel a strange sting when you discover a group of friends ate without you. Why the smell of a childhood dish can knock the wind out of you. Why you resent doing all the cooking, or all the cleaning. Why a warm bowl of soup, delivered by someone who cares, can feel like more than food. Your brain still expects a hearth. It still measures love in portions and effort and heat. It still notices, quietly, who fed you and who did not. The old programs never left. They just changed clothes. And so here is the thing no one tells you about being human. You are not the ending of a long evolutionary line. You are the middle of a very long conversation between a body and a fire. Somewhere back there, our ancestors did not simply discover cooking. Cooking, slowly and patiently, discovered them. It shaped their teeth, their time, their families, their memories. It moved part of their biology outside their skin and asked them to trust each other with it. Every kitchen you have ever stood in is a distant descendant of that first careful flame. We like to say that humans mastered fire, but standing here, in a world where nearly everything you eat has been touched by heat before it touches you, it is worth asking the quieter, more honest question. Did we tame the fire? Or did the fire, night after night, meal after meal, generation after generation, quietly tame us? If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Back Times, hit the bell icon, and share this video with someone who loves history.